who are going to do just that. So I'm going to go through the bit of the sort of like routine when I do the Zooms. So I just want to quickly thank Rudy for the technical assistance, Leon, who does the YouTube for us, so it's live streamed through to YouTube, and the wonderful, beautiful, gorgeous Montrese, who always monitors the chat, because the chat's really, really busy and I can't do everything. So it's really wonderful to have that technical support and assistance every time we come onto the Zoom platform. So thank you, everybody. So, as I always say, have your pens, your pads, your notebooks ready, because you're going to have a wealth of information here. There's going to be loads of knowledge just shared. So please have your pens and pads ready so you can make your notes at your leisure. Please post any questions into the chat. There'll be a brief Q&A at the end. And all that I ask is, when you come on the platform, please put your camera, because I want to see your beautiful faces. And we don't like talking to a black screen. So Q&A, you know, so you'll be free, you'll be in a comfortable, you're amongst friends, so you can ask questions. And we look forward to having, you know, we love the interaction. So as I said, when you come on, just put your hand up in the chat so I can see who it is. Please say who you are. And again, you know, you can ask your questions to the panelists. So wherever you are in the world, welcome. I should be saying good morning, good night, just hi. And thank you for being with us. Goodness. As you know, I haven't been Zooming as much as I used to. So on a Saturday morning, I'd be Zooming from 8 o'clock in the morning. Supposed to be a 2-hour Zoom, but it would go on for considerably longer. But we spoke about all sorts of things. In the height of the lockdown, you know, we've had many, many topics that we covered. If you want to catch up on things that you think you've missed or you'd like more information on, please visit our YouTube channel, Queen's 2020 lockdown series, and you'll find we've done over 30, I think nearly 40 Zooms we've done throughout the lockdown, and even, you know, post-lockdown. You know, we've done Zooms on hair, on skin, we've touched on mental health, we've touched on so many different topics. So please do check out our YouTube channel. I've got a couple of announcements. So even though I've been offline and not Zooming, I've been really, really, really busy. We have been really, really busy. So we've had quite a few markets in Beckenham Place Park, and we've got a couple of markets coming up, and lots of different kind of like projects. Because now, as we're gradually, you know, opening up, you know, we're able to kind of like, you know, do things as opposed to being on that virtual platform. We can actually see people, see their beautiful smiles, and just interact with each other, which has been fantastic. We still have to be careful, mind you, but it's really nice being able to actually meet people in the flesh, so to speak. So what am I up to next? Well, next Saturday, if you're in Southeast London, give it up. If you're in Southeast London, I will be in Catford from 10 o'clock in the Catford Mews. So if you know Catford Mews, if you know Catford, if you know Lewisham, Sydenham, it's not far from those kind of areas in Southeast London. And I've been asked to do a pop-up. So I'll be doing a pop-up on Saturday, which is the 12th of March in Catford, in the Catford Mews. And in the pop-up, I'll be talking about, as many of you know, I run a walking group. And the only reason why I got into the world of Zooming was because we couldn't walk as a group. But we are back out walking, and big up the Queens who came out and walked this morning. Yeah, we had a good walk this morning. We walked through hilly fields, we walked through broccoli. Yeah, so we had a long walk, clocked up our 20,000 plus steps today. So really, really good morning. So big up the walking Queens. So next week after the walk, I'll be doing a pop-up in Catford, in the Catford Mews, and I'll be talking about the walking group, and I'll also be talking about an initiative. It's coming up as being back to front on my screen, but it's the Up Living Lighter initiative for the African and Caribbean community, which is being delivered specifically in the borough of Lewisham. It's a weight management program. So if anybody who has a Lewisham GP who wants to get involved in that, please contact them, or you can WhatsApp me. There's going to be information going into the chat about that, because we really want our community to benefit from this free program that's being delivered. I'm a partner in that. So yeah, if you're from Lewisham Borough, please get involved. So I'll be talking about that at the pop-up. I'll be talking about our walking group. I'll be talking about lots of different projects and initiatives that we're going to be doing. It's social prescribing weeks. Well, on Thursday, the 10th of March, they're doing lots of social prescribing up and down the borough. So if you're in South East London again, I've been invited to present in Downham Leisure Centre. I don't know what time I'll be there, but I'll be in Downham Leisure Centre at some point. Then I'll be going across to Sydenham. Anybody interested, again, put it in the chat and we can pick it up once this Zoom has finished. So I'm going to be really, really busy. I've been invited to another pop-up, which is going to be down in Peckham, which is next Saturday, which is the 19th of March. Again, to talk about our health and wellbeing initiatives. And I'll be there from probably about midday. And I'm hoping to start a walking group in the Peckham, Camberwell area. So if you're interested, please get in touch. Please hook us up. My contact details will be going into the chat. So we're doing that. We've also got a couple of cultural markets. So we've got a Easter cultural market on Sunday, the 10th of April, which will be at venue 28. Yeah, so Sunday the 10th of April, venue 28, which is 28 Beckenham Road, Beckenham. Again, the details are going to go into the chat. We've got another market 5 days later, which is on Good Friday. And that will be, so Good Friday is the 15th of April, and that will be in Beckenham Place Park. It's going to be in a mansion house, yeah, which is Beckenham BR3 1SY. We've also got a family fun day. Again, the information will go into the chat. You can always contact me about that. What else are we doing? We've got our Queen's anniversary dinner. So when I created the walking group was only meant to be for 6 weeks. And 2 years on, we're still walking. Walking group has expanded UK-wide. We've got over 20 walking groups up and down the country. Some are stronger than others. But the main thing is that, our community's out trying to get healthy, and they are getting healthy. So really excited about that. We've got tickets on sale. There's 150 tickets available. Well, it's less than that now because tickets are going. So if anybody would like to join us in the wonderful celebration, 3-course sumptuous Caribbean meal, we'll have a fashion show, we'll have a bit of a boogie at the end. So I'm really looking forward to that. So please come and join us and just celebrate our achievement of as being a walking group, a Black walking group. 2 years. Who would have thought an idea that, a concept would be sort of like 2 years on? So we're going to be doing that. That'll be on the 2nd of July, again at venue 28, which is 28 Beckenham Road, BR3 1LY. So what's happened so far for the Queens now that I'm back zooming? Well, last week we had the wonderful Jo Dash talk about the science of melanin and nutrition. We've done Queens, Our Black Skin Rocks. Again, you can catch all these on our YouTube channel. And we had the Queens of Music. We had a Zoom party, and did we have a good old boogie? Wonderful. Again, you can catch all this on YouTube. And because we're streaming through to our Facebook page, you can find lots of what we've done on our page, which is We Love Health and Wellbeing. All right, so check it out. Forthcoming Zooms. We've got Queens, the fashion industry, and Black models experience. I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be so interesting, where we will have industry experts from the world of fashion who are going to be talking about what it's like to be in the world of fashion as a Black person, from a modeling perspective, and also actually working in the industry. So I'm really looking forward to that. We've got a women's empowerment session with the vision board. So that'll be good as well. And I'm trying to organize another Queen's Zoom party, but our lady DJs are really, really busy. So we have some really fantastic, awesome Queen Zoom sessions coming your way. Not as regular, but they are coming. So get ready. So if you want to hear about future Queen's Walking Group Zooms, please follow us on Eventbrite. If you look for Queen's Walking Group or Queens and Rudy J, you'll be able to find the tickets and you can book. So for example, if you want to come to market, the tickets, free tickets are on Eventbrite for you to book. As I've said, this Zoom has been recorded and it's been live streamed through to YouTube, and it's been live streamed through to our Facebook page, which is We Love Health and Wellbeing. All right. We've got an Instagram page, Queens and Rudy J Media. So we post loads of things on there, especially to do with our markets. We've got a newsletter, fantastic newsletter. Then we had a competition last month in our February edition, and we've got another competition this month. So if you want to sign up for that, the information again will go into the chat. So, goodness, I'm almost out of breath now. So please have your pens, your pads ready. Let's get into today's session. Queens, it's all gone tits up. Breast cancer awareness. So are we ready? We've got wonderful presenters. So we are not listened to. That's when I was doing my research into Black women experiencing breast cancer. That was one of the things that sort of like came out when I was looking into it. Why Black women are twice as likely to be diagnosed with late stage cancer. Studies show that Black women are less likely to develop breast cancer than white women. However, they are far more likely to be diagnosed at a late stage and to die from the disease. In fact, Black women are twice as likely to be diagnosed with late stage breast cancer compared to white women. The shocking findings were revealed in a report conducted by Public Health England in 2016. And yet there is still very little public awareness about the implications of race on cancer diagnosis, say campaigners. A 2021 survey conducted by Black Women Rising UK found that 46% of women who were later diagnosed were told in their initial consultation that despite having symptoms, their consultant did not always believe they had cancer. There are numerous studies highlighting the higher risk faced by Black women when it comes to breast cancer. This is an area of research that is changing and developing, but here are the key things you need to know. Black women have a lower incidence rate, but a higher mortality rate of breast cancer compared to white women. So Black women are less likely to develop the disease, but a lot more likely to die from it. Black women are more likely to develop breast cancer at a younger age, under the age of 50, and are more likely to have a more aggressive form of the disease called triple negative breast cancer. So our wonderful presenters will go into a bit more detail about that. But this more aggressive form isn't the only reason why outcomes are worse. Recent research has found that Black women have a worse prognosis than white women, regardless of the breast cancer subtype they have. Around 30% of newly diagnosed Black breast cancer patients are younger than 50 years old, compared to only 20% of white patients. Mammograms and screenings are especially important in Black women because early detection of aggressive cancers can be life-saving and can reduce the need for chemotherapy. So there you have it. I'm going to introduce you to our first presenter, Dr. Rose Thompson, Chief Executive of BME Cancer Communities, multi-award winning pioneer industry, including an honorary doctorate in social sciences from Nottingham Trent University in 2017, and one of 4 Gustafer Awards from Nottingham City Council in 2018. Rose's vision is to contribute to ending or at least reducing cancer health inequalities wherever they come from a life-changing personal experience. So Dr. Rose Thompson, where are you, my darling? I could read on that. Your resume is just so amazing. All the different things that you've done, it's just incredible. And it really is, it's like you're fighting a war.
If you unmute yourself, Doctor.
Yeah. So while Rose unmutes herself, Rose is a qualified therapeutic radiographer in a previous career.
Are you having problems unmuting? Put your thumb up if you are.
Sorry, I didn't realize.
That's it.
Yeah. I'm just going to need to share the screen to get up my thing.
How are you?
I'm fine. I just
Good.
will need to put a couple of slides up just to
fantastic.
demonstrate.
Fantastic.
So I just need to. Have I got
Yes.
co-host?
Yes. Well, you can share the screen. I've given you the ability to do that.
Okay.
So welcome.
I'm just trying to get Zoom back because I seem to have gone off it.
You've moved on from being a timid 19-year-old who barely spoke to anyone.
Oh, tell me about that. Yeah, I don't seem to be able to see the screen. Let me just close what I don't need.
So much. Yeah. You've also authored 2 BME prostate cancer reports launched in the House of Commons that initiated a national campaign, and CEO of a cancer charity founded after personal adversity. So, but I know you can tell your story as well.
Going back onto Zoom because I don't seem to be able to see things.
Oh, okay.
Actually, maybe it might be better to start with the breast cancer signs and symptoms. So whilst I just sort this.
Right. Or should I get one of the other presenters to go first?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Dr. Sese Aziza, would you be happy to step in?
Yes, that's fine. Not a problem at all. Hi.
Oh, fantastic. Right. Okay. So what would you like me to do now?
It's okay. I can introduce myself. Don't worry. I mean, being in between 2 amazing doctors, like I'm so honored to be speaking with the 2 of you. Honestly, you've done so many incredible, inspiring things. And I really hope that someday I'll be at your level. So you're breaking the glass ceilings and you're basically showing us that it's possible even as Black women, especially as Black women. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me, Joan. I always love, relaying information to your group of ladies and gentlemen, of course. Thank you. I am Dr. Aziza Sise. I am an NHS GP. I've been a doctor for about 12, 13 years now and a GP for the last 7. And I am really passionate in health promotion. So I'm just going to get my my slides up. Sorry, 1 second. Oh, that's interesting. Maybe I'm having the same problem. Let me see. Okay, here we go. I was like, oh, it won't let me do it. Okay. Can you all see my slides?
Yes.
Amazing. Okay. So yeah, I was saying I'm Dr. Aziza Sise. I'm an NHS GP, and I'm really, really passionate about health promotion and disease prevention. And through that, I've started a platform called Talks with Dr. Sise. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook as well. And I do a lot of talks on common medical conditions in the hope of preventing them from occurring at all, or at least moderating their progression, because health is wealth, prevention is better than cure, and as cliche as it sounds, knowledge is power. I always put this slide up just to say that obviously I'm just giving general health education and information, and I can't give any personal medical advice because obviously it won't be safe or legal. But if you hear anything today that you think, oh, you know what, I'm a bit concerned and maybe I may have some of the symptoms that she's described, and I really, really urge you, I implore you, please, to see your GP, see us. We want to see you so that you can get checked out, okay? Okay, so I wanted to just have a very quick discussion about the breast anatomy, what breast cancer is, the symptoms, and also spend some time talking about how to perform the breast examination, and then talk about breast cancer screening, what it entails, and what the results mean, and so on. There might be a couple of slides that I'll skip through because I think Dr. Rose has said that she'll cover it. But I always like to start by being a bit interactive. So I wanted to do a poll with everyone just to see what your answers are. Don't worry, it'll be anonymous, and also there's no judgment. It's just to get the ball rolling and the communication going, just to see where you all are at. Joan, do you think you could put the poll up if you just launch poll, let's see if it works. Yes, it worked. Okay, so the question is, do you examine your breast at least once a month? So just say yes or no. And this is to everybody. Okay, everybody in the audience, including you, Joan. And then the second question is, can men get breast cancer? Yes or no? So once you've answered the questions, all you need to do is please click submit. And then afterwards, Joan will launch the poll when I ask her to, okay? All right, I think hopefully most people would have answered the question. So I'll move on. Remember, there's no right or wrong answer. Well, there is for the second one, but just attempt it for now. Okay, so what you can see on your screen right now is a picture of a breast, okay, that has been sort of cut, and you're looking at it from the side. And this is what the insides of the breast look like. So if you focus on this screen and you can see my cursor moving, I want you to imagine these little bits as tiny trees, okay? And the bits that you can see that kind of look like leaves, right? That bit is what we call the lobes and the lobules. So these are the bits that make the milk, okay, in the woman's breast. And then these areas, these bits that look like branches, those are called ducts. And that's how the milk that's being made goes from there all the way out through to the nipple, okay? So lobules, ducts, all of that together is what we call glandular tissue. And in between, we have what we call fibrous tissues, the fat and so on. And that's what makes the breast have the shape that it has, okay? Usually and most commonly when breast cancer does develop, it often starts in the ducts right here, okay? That's the area that we mostly get breast cancer. I wanted to also say here that obviously this is a woman's breast. However, men do have some of this breast tissue behind their nipple as well. And it varies depending on the individual, how much they have. So that's a clue to the second question that I asked. So really quickly, what is breast cancer? It's when you have abnormal cells in the breast that grow uncontrollably and they just keep dividing until they form a growth that we call a tumor or we feel as a lump. And it's the most commonly occurring cancer that happens in women in the world, but it can happen in men too. So if you wouldn't mind, Joan, can you please put the poll up just so I can see what everyone said to the second question? Okay, great. Very good news. If we just start with the second question, can men get breast cancer? 95% of you said yes, and 95% of you were correct. So 99% of breast cancer occur in women, but 1% do occur in men, okay? And then the second question, thank you so much for participating. Only 37% of you said yes to examining your breast at least once a month. I'm going to emphasize why it's important to examine your breast as we go along. But thank you for partaking in that. So breast cancer is quite common. Around 55,200 people are diagnosed with breast cancer every year in the UK, which is about 150 new cases every single day. So it's really common in the UK. And unfortunately, the cases have been continuously rising over the years. Now in the UK, it's said that about 1 in 7 women develop breast cancer in their lifetime. So 1 in 7 women. And it is the 4th most common cause of cancer deaths in the UK. But what's really good and positive is that the survival is improving and it has doubled in the last 40 years. And one thing that I really wanted to emphasize is that breast cancer, if it's picked up early, the chances of survival has much increased. And that's why raising awareness and talking about breast cancer is so important, so people know what to look out for, so that if things get picked up, they get picked up early, and also so that they can attend their screening to get things picked up early as well. Now, the statistic is that women who get diagnosed early, 98% of them will live 5 years or more. if their diagnosis is in the early stage, compared to only 26% if they get diagnosed at the late stage for living 5 years or more. So it makes such a massive difference getting diagnosed early. I was going to talk about risk factors, but I think I'll move on from that because Dr. Rose is going to chat about it. But I wanted to just briefly talk about the different breast cancer types. So we have non-invasive breast cancer. So what that means is that you have cancer cells, but they don't have the capability to spread. So this is what we call in situ. It's within that area. So remember I said that the breast cancer often starts in the ducts, and that's why it's called ductal carcinoma in situ, which means that it is the cancer cells are within the ducts. And you might have seen it as DCIS. And if we don't treat it, there is a risk that they can eventually get the ability to spread and become invasive breast cancer. So I said that the two main different types, and the invasive breast cancer are the ones that have the potential to spread. But again, just to emphasize that it doesn't mean that they have or will spread, but they have that capability. And this is why, again, if it's treated early, we can reduce the risk from happening. So the different cancers, Joan mentioned one being triple negative, that's a type of invasive breast cancer. And you have invasive ductal cancer, which is where it started in the duct. And again, it's spread either to the surrounding breast tissue or to different parts of the body. And then invasive lobular cancer, remember I said the lobules were the bits that make the milk. And then there's also a condition called Paget's disease, inflammatory disease. I just wanted to make you aware of the different types. So let's talk about the symptoms of breast cancer. I'm going to show you this picture on the screen just as an illustration for the things that we're looking out for. And then I'm going to emphasize how and why we do the breast examination. But symptoms of breast cancer include, if you notice a new change in the size or the shape of your breasts, if you notice a lump in your breast, if you notice that the skin texture is changed, so it starts to dimple, or it just looks different. Sometimes it's described as the peel of the orange, you know, the peel of the orange, how it's sort of sucked in, the dimpling. That could be a sign. If you notice a redness or a rash around your nipple, around the skin of the breast, and it's just not going away. If you notice that your nipple has gone in on itself when it's never done that before. So there are some individuals who are born with what we call inverted nipples, and that's normal for them. But if that's become something new for you, that could be a potential sign of breast cancer. If you notice that you're getting discharge coming out of your breast and you're not lactating, particularly if it's red or green, when I say lactating, I mean breastfeeding, that is a sign. If you have pain that's persisting in your breast, it's just not going away, no matter what you do, you take painkillers, and you've not had any recent, trauma or falls to it. And if you notice a pain in your armpit as well, if it's not going away, see your doctor. And then if you notice any lumps or bumps in your armpits, that again isn't going away, it's new, or if you notice it in your collarbone as well. Now, these are the main symptoms that we talk about, but sometimes when the cancer has spread, you may start to notice symptoms like tiredness, headaches, bone pains, and so on. So when we talk about breast examination, the importance of it is what we're doing is we're learning what is normal for us as individuals. Because if we know what's normal for us, then we are much more likely to pick up any abnormalities or anything that's unusual much earlier, much quicker. So the advice is that you examine your breast at least once a month, but as often as possible. And we often say to do it at the same time every month. Now, the recommendation is for people who have periods is that you do it about a week after your period. And the reason being is so before your period and just around your period, the breast is quite tender and can be quite lumpy. So you may find something that actually is just because of hormonal changes. But if not, do it maybe on the first of the month. You could set a reminder on your phone to remind you or so on. Some people do the first of the month because it's just, okay, it's a new month, let me examine my breast. But just do it at least once a month. And you always look and then feel. And I always say this with regards to breast examination, it's not just women that I'm speaking to, I'm also speaking to men or anybody who has breast tissue, and we all have breast tissue unless you've had it removed. So how do we perform the breast examination? The first thing that we do is we look, okay? So you're gonna stand in front of the mirror and you're going to take off the top half of your clothes, and that includes your bra as well. And look in the mirror, and you have your arms in 3 different positions, okay? The first position will be on the sides. I hope y'all can see me on the sides. And then the second would be on your hips, and you just press, and you're going to look at your breast again, just to see if there are any changes whilst you're doing that, any lumps that comes up. And then you lift your arms up above your head like this. And what you could do is lean forward to see if anything pops up. And you're looking all around for the things that we've just mentioned. Is there any rash? Is your nipple inverted? Is there any discharge coming out? Anything new? Is the skin changed? Or just examine what it looks like for you. And after you've had a really good look, it's also worth turning to the sides as well, just to see all around, make sure you're not missing anything. I have this plushie here to help as well. So if you have bigger breasts, don't forget to lift it up so that you can look underneath the breast as well. So after you've done looking, you're going to feel. And the way to do it, this is one recommendation, as I say, but you can do it in different ways as long as you're making sure that you're feeling all around the breast, okay? But the recommendation is that you keep your arm up above your head, one arm up above your head. And then with the opposite hand, you want to use the flats of your 3 fingers. I usually divide my breast into 4 parts so I could concentrate on each area to make sure that I'm not missing anything. So you lift your arm above your head like this, and then using the flats of your fingers, you're going to feel each of the 4 areas. So you want to feel all around in a circular motion like this, and then on the other side like that. And make sure as well that you press on the nipple. So you want to feel all around, see if there's any lump, is there any tenderness, is there any change in the skin texture or so on as you're feeling around. And after you've done that, you want to make sure that you also go all the way up to your armpits and you feel inside. And you want to make sure that you feel into your collarbone, into your shoulder tip up here. And you want to feel all the middle area of your chest as well. Okay, and after you've done that, you move on to the other side and do the exact same thing. You always compare, because you may find something on one side, and actually when you find it on the other side, that could just be normal for you. But as I say, you do these examinations once a month. There are some apps available that set as reminders, that can set reminders for you to feel your breast. So there's an organization called Cup of Fill People where they set you reminders to examine your breast. There's also Know Your Lemons Foundation, which again helps with reminding you to examine your breast. Or as I say, you could just set a reminder on your phone's calendar on repeat every month at the same time. Now, when it comes to the feeling of the breast, some people just prefer to do it in the shower and they use the soap, so there's a bit of lather and it's a bit slippery when you're examining. Other people prefer to do it lying down, or they do it whilst they're looking in the mirror. It's entirely up to you. My plea to you is please just examine your breast at least once a month. And if you could encourage your loved ones to do the same, it would make such a difference. Because as I say, if you know what your normal is, you're much more likely to pick something up when it's abnormal, and you will pick it up when it's at an early stage, where, as I said, the prognosis or the rates of it being cured is much higher. Okay, I wanted to just touch on breast cancer screening. The first way of screening is one that I've already spoken about, which is the breast examination. It's an informal way, you do it in your home. But there are other screening tests, which is where they check for healthy individuals who are apparently don't have any disease and don't have symptoms. These are the screening that we do. And the tests include a mammogram, which is where x-rays of the breast are taken. The machine looks like this. So what happens is the lady will stand and they'll put the breast in between 2 plates like this. And then the plates will squeeze down onto the breast like that to get an image. And then on the same breast, they'll move the equipment to the side like this. And again, it will squeeze down to get an image of the side of the breast. So you end up having 2 X-ray images of each breast. And some women do find that it can be a bit uncomfortable, but it shouldn't be painful. And often it only lasts, it's literally a matter of a few seconds to a minute for them to get the images. And then there's an MRI scan as a means of screening as well. So this is what an MRI scan device looks like. And that's a position that you'll usually be in. So you're face down, and then they move you into the machine. Some people find it a bit claustrophobic, but again, you're not in for that long, and they take the images of the breast. But the mammogram is much more sensitive usually than the MRI scan. And the aim is to find breast cancer early. It doesn't prevent it from occurring. Now, just some numbers in the UK to reassure you and also encourage you to attend breast cancer screening. It's said that breast cancer screening reduced the number of deaths by breast cancer by 1,300 a year, which is 20%. So many lives saved through screening early. And overall, the breast cancer screening program will only find about 1% of women who have breast cancer. So only 1% of women who have the screening will be found to have breast cancer. So also, just to reassure you that if you go for the mammogram or you go for your screening, it doesn't mean that you'll be diagnosed with breast cancer. It's very, very few, only 1%. And I just wanted to emphasize that quite a few women have missed their their mammogram appointment, their screening appointment, and it's because of the COVID restrictions. So if you're one of that group, please, please, please contact your GP, try and see if you can get your mammogram done as soon as possible. So just to mention that in the UK, nationally, there are 3 screening programs. There's the cervical, there's the breast, and the bowel. So I just wanted to make you aware of what's available. Please attend them if you can. But in the UK, how breast cancer screening works is they usually invite women at the age of 50 to 70 who are registered with their GP. Now, in some areas, in some parts of London, they're trialing out a sort of a wider range. So younger women at the age of 47 being invited up to the age of 73. And the invitations every 3 years, I beg your pardon. And you can, if you want, you can request to have breast cancer screening after the age of 70 if you've never had it before. But what happens? I beg your pardon. Just like I said before, they do the mammogram, they take 2 images of your breast, one from the top and then one from the side. And then you usually will get the results in 2 weeks. But again, it can take a bit longer because of everything that's been going on with COVID and so on. But if you haven't heard anything in 2 weeks, usually you contact your GP just to make absolutely sure that you've not missed anything. Now, the results are usually go back to routine screening because it's normal, which majority of the cases is. Only 4% of people who go for mammograms come back as abnormal. But again, it doesn't mean that because it's abnormal that you have breast cancer. In fact, 4 out of 5 women who get called as being abnormal will come back normal. Like the results will all come back normal. But when you do get called, they often will either repeat the mammogram again, they'll do an ultrasound scan, or they'll do a biopsy or an MRI scan. And sometimes the results can be a bit unclear, which unfortunately that's the reality of life. And because of that, they will then invite you to have a repeat of the procedure. Now, there are some individuals who are classed as high-risk group. So these are people who have a very close family history of breast cancer. So either their mom had it at a young age, or their parents, their mom or their dad, because as I say, breast cancer occurs in men. Also, if their siblings had it or their children had breast cancer, and if they're considered as high risk, then they get invited to get a scan done more regularly. So over the age of 40, you get a mammogram every year if you have a family history. And if you're under 40, you get an MRI scan every year. And the reason an MRI scan is done in younger age group is because usually the mammogram is not very good at picking up things when there's a lot of dense tissue. And obviously the younger you are, the more dense the tissue is. So the MRI scan is used hopefully to pick things up before then. And the other thing is a mammogram, as I say, is an x-ray, and you don't want to be doing x-rays that often because in the long term, there are risks involved with using it that often. So the other high-risk groups are the ones who have faulty genes. So I don't know if you've heard of BRCA1 and BRCA2, which basically it just when they say BRCA, BRCA, BR stands for breast, CA is cancer. So the breast cancer gene is actually a gene that helps to stop breast cancer. But if you have a mutation in that gene, or we call it faulty gene, then you're at higher risk of developing breast cancer. So they advise that you have an MRI scan every year between the ages of 20 to 30, depending on the type of faulty gene that you have, because there's another one as well. If you are diagnosed with breast cancer, what happens next? Just really briefly to say that you get seen by a multidisciplinary team, so multiple different occupations, a group of specialists that work together to give you the best treatment of care. They find out the type and the stage of breast cancer that you have. And depending on you as an individual, they then decide what the best plan is for you. So whether it's surgery and radiotherapy or chemotherapy and radiotherapy, hormone targeted therapy, so on and so forth, depending on you as an individual. But those are the options available. So really quickly, just to say, thank you so much for listening in. The take-home message is please, please, please know what's normal for you and understand your body. Seek further another doctor. If you feel like you're not being listened to by them and they're not referring you, see someone else or change the surgery. Please do take matters into your own hands as well. Please advocate for yourself. If you're concerned and something is not right, trust your gut feeling. Please attend your cancer screening invitations. And also just remember this, and I think Dr. Rose is going to speak about this as well. A healthy, balanced lifestyle really makes a massive difference. And in fact, they say that 30% of cancer deaths could be avoided if we changed our lifestyle and if we were more healthy. So if we didn't smoke, if we didn't have too much alcohol, so only have the recommended amount or none at all, make sure that you're exercising and you're maintaining a healthy weight, you're eating your fruits and vegetables. All of these things can help reduce cancer deaths. So thank you very much. I hope that you found that helpful. That's my contact if you're interested, if you want to know more information, but I think we'll have more questions later. But that's it for me. Thank you.
Aziza, thank you very, very much for that. Thorough, and I love the action, and it's really good having the the demonstration, knowing how to, because it's so important knowing how to examine the breast. So that was really, really, and I'm sure the participants, the guests on the platform found that really, really helpful, because I've sat in talks similar to this, but it was really detailed. And in actual fact, I didn't even know that there were reminder apps to check your breast. I mean, I've learned something new myself this evening. And thank you very much for sharing that. And hopefully we can probably put that back up on the screen again, because we've had come onto the platform a little bit late so they can see it as well. But it's really about, I mean, these sessions really are about getting the information, good quality information out into our community. So that's really, really helpful. Thank you so much, my darling. Blessings. Now, Dr. Rose, are you all right now? Is the technical side, is it all working? You're still on mute, my darling. Yeah, can you
unmute? Oh, it's done.
Oh, you're on mute. Wonderful.
I don't know what's happening to these things. Okay, I think we're there now, so I can share my screen, yeah?
Yes, that's absolutely fine.
Thank you so much, Joan, and everybody for having me. Dr. Aziz, that was brilliant. It makes it easier for me to follow that. So I have put a presentation together. It's a bit more, it's got a few more words in it than I normally would. I tend to use images and when I'm doing live presentations, but I will include some of the personal stuff as well, because what Joan hasn't said is that I am living with breast cancer and have been since 2015. I will talk a bit about family history as well. So I'm going to go into share screen and see if I can get my presentation up. I usually need my husband to do this, but he's on another call. I'm just going to, that goes to the slideshow and from the beginning. So I'm doing this because we are recognizing International Women's Day, aren't we? Oops, sorry. And I kind of wanted to start with the global burden of women's cancer in 2018. I thought this might be, there are more up-to-date ones. They do these figures about every 5 to 10 years, and it's a bit blurred, but I just wanted to show you that when I started my training, barely saw anybody Black. The first person that I ever knew was who had breast cancer was my mother, and she didn't speak about it. And what we were trained was that to learn was that breast cancer was not common in places like Africa and China, and it was more common in the Western world, which it still is. There are far more cases of breast cancer in the US and the UK and in Europe than in Africa and low to middle income communities. And Dr. Aziz has really covered that correctly. Even though there are fewer cases, actually the death rates are higher. And I think Joan said that as well. So this is kind of a look at the stats, which you can't see very clearly, but you can get these maps on a website called Globocan, and a number of different countries, the International Agencies for Research on Cancer, put those stats together. And I take some of them with a pinch of salt because it's very difficult, for example, in a country like Ukraine now to collect stats where there's war. And you can see that the darker red is where the higher global burden is. That means that they're not just getting more cancer, but they're actually more likely to die from cancer. And Africa has not had as much breast cancer. More women were dying from cervical cancer. But you can see that Africa is hot now. And we were taught that by 2020, the global burden of cancer would be in low to middle income developing countries, and it's already there. And in those countries, you don't necessarily have the infrastructure to treat it. There needs to be much more done with integrated and complementary therapy as well. So I'm just going to go on to the next one. I'll just do it. So this is a picture of my mother, the first person that I ever knew that had breast cancer. In this photograph, she was probably about 30 years old, just had twins, just come to the country, and I was the first person the first daughter born here to her. She'd had my elder sister in Jamaica, Clarendon, Jamaica, and she came over when she was 15 months, on the day that my mother was giving birth to us. And my uncle bought her, and my dad got to go to the airport to collect them. So they had to catch a lift home. So well, you can guess which one's me. But I'm more like my father. As you can see, my mother was, she had very light skin and freckles. And her father was, it's interesting, isn't it? We always kind of tended to know, and people talked about the European heritage, but not the African heritage. So I knew that there was Scottish, and on my grandfather's side, maternal grandfather, there was Jewish, East European Jewish, Ashkenazi Jewish, which we found, there was some research done in St. John's Wood that found that women from Ashkenazi Jewish heritage were more likely to carry the BRCA genes. That's where most of the research was done. That did not go down too well in the community, bad genes and stuff like that. But I do know that that's where some of my heritage is, and it's true, because in some cases those women were 80% more likely to develop breast cancer, and they had multiple members of the family. So I knew that was true. So this is just a family history, and the breast cancer that is in my family is called hormonal breast cancer. It is the most common type of cancer. Talk a little bit about that, but I just kind of went from, my mother was 47 when she was diagnosed. She did not talk about it. My godmother told me about it, and basically she chose no treatment. By the time I knew she had it, it was in both breasts, and she passed within 6 months. The second event was my twin sister, who was diagnosed in 1990 at the age of 34. It was just a little lump in the breast, in the nipple, and they weren't even certain what it was to begin with. And then we had a very good consultant who I was working with. I was a qualified radiographer by then, working in Nottingham, and he said, well, you know, we better treat it like, you know, it is a full-blown breast cancer, even though it's early, which she did. But when it recurred, her GP missed it and thought she just got back pain because she'd been to the gym. The third event was my younger sister, who was 42 in 2004 when she was diagnosed. She had what Dr. Aziza just spoke about, DCIS, ductal carcinoma in situ, which when you look at the mammograms, you see like little white dots of calcium within the milk ducts. And she actually had pain when she discovered it, and so did I. So it isn't always true that you never get pain. If cancer is interfering with nerves, then you can. And it's not common, but that's why she went, and she had early stage breast cancer, but she was not offered some of the treatment. She lived in a rural area. She wasn't offered some of the treatment that we expected her to have as somebody with family history. And she recurred in the same breast, and it spread. Now, all those three are no longer here. We don't want to see that anymore. And I did start a Sisters Against Cancer support group. And as a result of starting that support group, we're seeing much longer survival. The vice chair, for example, she didn't have breast cancer, but we've got a lot of breast cancer patients surviving. She had kidney cancer, which in my day, you know, she wouldn't have survived a year. She was given 18 months, and she is still here 9 years later. She's recurred 5 times. I've recurred twice, but actually we're teaching each other how to spot it early, even with secondary cancer, and get help for it. My aunt was 74 when she was diagnosed. She was a very experienced nurse and a sister in the premature baby units, but she had dementia. And so by the time it was spotted, it had already spread. She had chemo, and we had to move her to the Caribbean. And I think the dementia got her before the cancer, quite slow growing. So, and then there's me. 2015, I got a pain, and I was exercising. We did something called regular aerobics, and thought, well, maybe it's because I've got a sports bra on. But it was in one breast. That's where it tends to be. It's not both breasts. When I exercise, I tend to get pains in both breasts. And I took a painkiller, and it went away. And I thought, well, that's okay. It's probably the exercise. A week later, it came back intensely, and I couldn't get rid of it. And I knew something was wrong. It was like a kind of burning, gnawing pain. So I went to my GP, and we found out that the tumor had been there probably a year or so, but the mammogram had missed it the year before because it was in such an undetectable position, just on the edge of the breast, near to the glands. Your breast tissue goes quite high up into kind of the shoulder area. So it was high up, deep down. And even my consultant, who I'd been a registrar when I was working there, he was like digging potatoes trying to find it, and he couldn't find it. So it had already spread to 7 glands. But I'm saying, you know, I was told it would recur in 2 years, and it did, and it recurred again this year. But as they say in Jamaica, me still there, basically. I am still here, 7 years and counting, and not just teaching people to survive, but to thrive as well. I think it's really important. So this is from the Lancet Global Health, which doctors read. They said, we provide evidence of a rising burden of both premenopausal and postmenopausal breast cancer worldwide, although early diagnosis and access to treatment remain, whatever, you can read it. Primary prevention efforts seeking to decrease exposure to breast cancer risk factors are warranted in all world regions to curb the future breast cancer burden. And then on the next bit of it, they hadn't got any funding to do that. And we certainly need to do something now because it's increasing. So traveling from countries where there's a low incidence rates to countries where there are higher rates. Oh, what happens there? It must be on the thing, is one of the things that is important, because breast cancer rates increase significantly within 2 generations in the US. More than half of all cancers in the UK could be prevented by healthy lifestyle. But they find that women like Chinese women and Japanese women who took more phytoestrogens, we'll talk about hormones later, they had a low incidence rate of breast cancer in their country of origin. It was lifestyle, physically active more, and those plant estrogens seem to help prevent the more damaging estrogen from increasing the risk of breast cancer. So environmental factors are much more common in low to middle income countries, often because some company's been there and left some nasty thing on the floor like asbestos or some other cancer causing. And we have to look at things like Chernobyl as well, where there was a cloud of radiation. So this is my picture of breast cancer, because I kind of used to use this at Cancer Backup. I think I'm on the timer, but I'll keep it going. So the lymph nodes that serve the breast are under the arm, under the sternum, and there's also some just above your clavicle that you feel for as well. And I think Dr. Aziza explained the rest. So the long things on the bottom one are the tubes, the milk ducts. That's where you see the spots of calcium. And then you've got fatty tissue. There is no muscles in the breast and connective tissue. And then the bubble bits that are kind of what they call lobules. Some people get lobular breast cancer in the lobules. Some will get DCIS early stage, and it can be taken away, and then you may find it somewhere else. So some people choose to have a mastectomy, and then you've got the ribs and muscle underneath. Mine was right on the edge. Sorry, onto the wrong one. So breast cancer and age. This is just to show you how the more you age, the more common it is. So 1 in 15,000 up to the age of 25. By the time you get to 70, it's 1 in 15. And this is why the breast screening program should not really stop at 74. It's actually still up to 70, I think, but in some regions they did a trial up to 74. But there are some tests coming. I was on the actual National Advisory Committee for breast cancer screening. So there is a new test coming that is going to change everything. You probably heard it on the news. It's a blood test. It detects 50 types of cancer more accurately than anything we've had before. It's under trial now, and they're looking for people who haven't got cancer to trial it. And we need a good diverse range of people from different ethnic groups. So breast cancer risk and age group increases, but still, even for Black women, breast cancer under the age of 50 is not common and may be linked to family history. So my mother was 47, my twin sister was 34. It's usually under 50. And I have met particularly some Nigerian women and some Northeast African women who have been in their 20s, in their late 20s. We've had 2 up here, one from Botswana, and the other one, I can't recall where, but quite sad, really, because it was quite aggressive and it did take a life. So it's really important that we know the signs and symptoms of breast cancer, even if we are not invited for screening, and examine ourselves. And if there's something wrong, you do need to get it seen to. If you are turned away, you need to get second opinion. And if you have a family history, that is really important. You can be fast tracked for that. So the breast cancer type is important. And I'm always asking women, what type of breast cancer do you have? And they don't know. It's really important. Dr. Aziza mentioned triple negative breast cancer. And I used to go to the Thames Cancer Registry when I was working in London and they used to say to me, what kind of research do we need to do to help you? So I said, you need to look at whether Black and Asian women are getting more non-hormonal breast cancer, which is called triple negative breast cancer. And so Dr. Ruth Jacks did that, and she actually discovered in the Southeast that Black and Asian women were getting more triple negative breast cancer. And the reason I say this is because over 8 out of every 100 are categorized as hormonal. That means the cancer cells need female hormones to grow and multiply. If you give people a drug like tamoxifen, which was one of the first to block hormones, then actually the cell can't keep reproducing itself. And it was one of the first drugs that worked really well in women who were postmenopausal to stabilize the cancer and stop it spreading everywhere. Between 50 and 20 out of every 100 are triple negative. And this means that it doesn't give a toss about hormones. It grows anyway. And it usually starts with a very small, hard, pea-sized lump. And most women who are in their 40s are not going to think that's breast cancer. So the thing is that most of the drug companies and the treatments have been focused on the majority of cancer. And so there are less options with triple negative, but I'm pleased to say that I did go onto the triple negative research thing right from the beginning. I actually asked them to add in Black women, and there are 2 new drugs that have come on that are supposed to just target triple negatives now. Some of them are called PARP inhibitors. So done our part to get that done. And one of our members who nothing else has worked, she's just started on one of the newest drugs. So breast cancer risk reduction is possible. I'm not going to be talking about everybody dying and everything. We know that already. We experienced that. Thankfully, we've only lost 2. One was triple negative. She was 41 and she went privately and she didn't realize it had spread. She thought she had a cold. It was actually lung cancer. It had spread to her lungs. But even though it has spread, we have supported people through treatment and they've recovered. I advised a mother and daughter who had it, and I went to a birthday party, a 50th birthday party, and the daughter was there 15 years later, comparing it. So you can live with it. There are things that we may not be able to change, but we can help ourselves by changing the things that are modifiable, the things that can increase breast cancer risk. So it starts with listening to accurate, up-to-date information from a trusted source. People are talking about misinformation and disinformation now to do with COVID. I've had that all the time. When I started, people told me that Black people didn't get breast cancer because they weren't experiencing it. But they probably weren't, because the biggest thing about breast cancer is aging. So we were under the age of, well, our parents were under the age of 30 when they came here. So they would not have been getting it like the elders did. So, but knowing your own breast, like Dr. Aziza said, and I said, the evidence base needs to include patient experience. A lot of the white British people that I treat and European people had people in the family who'd already had it, so they'd learn from them. But knowing your own breast and reporting any unusual persistent change is important, and reporting if anybody else in the family has had it. I had to assist someone who was a very painful breast and was not being referred. And she hadn't even been asked if she'd got family history, and her grandmother had had it. So things you may not be able to change. Aging. But you know what? You might be able to change that as well. I'm 66, and I'm proud of the fact that I'm still young at heart and doing those things that I can, but your cells do age, and that is one of the biggest factors for breast cancer. Over 65% of all cancers are in the 65 plus age group. I'm really, this has been taken from the data that's out there, but I have to be very careful because I'm an advocate for people from the LGBT community who get discriminated against when they have cancer and are treated in a way that, you know, some who are have not been offered cervical cancer tests because they're in a same-sex relationship, women. So being a woman with female hormones, lifelong female hormones, actually may not be able to be changed. But as Dr. Aziza said, less than 1% of men are diagnosed, so they have a lower risk. You may not be able to change that. A family history of breast or ovarian cancer, I can't really change that. It's a reality in my family. I'm not sure that it's because of the gene that I have it, because I was diagnosed at 59. But, you know, we're still searching, and I just have to do what I can do to reduce the risk for my daughters. They're being screened from the age of 35. Inherited genetic mutations, that's a biggie, because only between 5 to 8% of breast cancers are because of inherited genetic mutations. And we do not want this to be become a race thing, that you're more likely to have it because you're Black. There are real reasons. And I'm hoping that Dr. Moline will talk about some of those as well, that we have to be very careful about talking about DNA and breast cancer, that we don't make it all about genetics, because it's a very small number that are inherited genetic mutations. Pregnancy and breastfeeding is important because it does slightly reduce the risk, but I got pregnant quite late, and the earlier you are pregnant, the greater you reduce the risk. And breastfeeding and me didn't agree, basically. I had 2 children who, if you breastfed them, they would swing off your breasts, but I had very little milk. So first time persisted, miserable. Second time, didn't do it. My mother was similar. So things you can change: alcohol intake. Really, alcohol changes your DNA, particularly the more that you drink. And we know that the more that a woman drinks, the greater her risk of breast cancer. Smoking cancer-causing substances goes into every cell. If you have a cervical smear, you will find nicotine. You will find nicotine in your breast cancer cells. So, and not just tobacco, but anything that's cancer-causing. Being physically active, they do say at least 30 minutes a day. There are some people like me, there are days, because I've had treatment and because I'm getting older, where I'm very tired, so I can't do it. So you just do the best that you can. Being a healthy weight after the menopause. Now, before the menopause, we found that women who may be overweight or even, you know, obese, they it didn't make such a difference as after the menopause. So you still need to exercise after the menopause. Asking questions about hormonal replacement therapy, because some women were put on single replacement therapy, others were on 2 types of hormone, and that matters. It didn't make a huge difference. That scare with breast cancer was unwarranted, really. But anytime you say anything about cancer, then everybody leaps on it without even checking. And I think you always have to say, well, 1 in 100,000, or, you know, you have to be very, very clear about what the risk is. Checking prescribed medication and side effects. I'm not going to go into what this drug is, but it does have a link to breast cancer and also to, I think, vaginal cancer as well. So if you've ever been prescribed that drug, you need to check. And checking vitamin D levels are sufficient, because we have less vitamin D because of our skin color and because the Northern Hemisphere has vitamin D deficiency. Scotland has the least vitamin D in this country. But we start from a kind of, we're even further back, because the melanin in our skin blocks it, and the deeper your skin color. And I was talking to several colleagues about the fact that when I was younger, my brother and I were the ones who had my father's skin coloring, we both had to have pieces fitted on our shoe. I had bow legs and he had knock knees, which is very, very characteristic of rickets. And we were the only ones in our family that had to do that. So we think that vitamin D levels are really important. Vitamin D is a hormone, but it does all sorts of things. We did a food nutrition cancer conference and raised awareness that vitamin D can actually increase the risk of some cancers, new research. So this is dedicated to all the women affected by global breast cancer inequalities. As I say, I'm not going to talk about death. I am a survivor and I'm a thriver, and I teach others to do the same. There's about nearly 40 in the group. We've done it with the men already. The men are no longer dying from prostate cancer because of what we did with support group and a community clinic. Thank you.
Dr. Thompson, thank you very much for that presentation. Excellent. I've got one quick question to ask you. When you talk about, so you went into your sort of like heritage,
yeah,
like the Jewish heritage, etc. So what prompted you to sort of like go into that level of detail? Was it linked to having that cancer diagnosis or?
No, long before I was diagnosed, I mean, you hear through COVID, they talk about epidemiology and etiology. I was always interested in why some countries had a particular type of cancer and others didn't. And my first job was at Westminster Hospital, and that was so diverse. And we took people from all over the world. And so I was noticing, for example, that people from the Saudi Emirates are more likely to have mouth cancer and colorectal cancer, the bowel cancer. And then the study came out from St. John's Wood about the Ashkenazi Jewish population, that women who had migrated from East Europe, basically who were Jewish heritage, had much higher rates of breast cancer. And the researchers wanted to look at that. And that's really where a lot of the work on the BRCA genes. BRCA means breast cancer. So the main genes involved are breast cancer 1 and breast cancer 2, but there is a breast cancer 3. And I'd always known that my grandfather had Jewish heritage because I checked the name as well. Oh, right. His name was Fairman. My uncle was the only Fairman in the telephone book. I'm that old. We had telephone books in that time. And we never found another until I met a man called Alfred Fairman, and he didn't think he had any relatives. And so I started talking to relatives, and it came from Foyman, which is Jewish. You know how they changed their names in the war? Yeah. And quite a few Jews who didn't have passports and things and didn't have papers stopped off in the Caribbean. Oh, right. Okay. And then there were 20 synagogues in Jamaica at one time. Really? There's one now. Right. And then because it was colonial and they were seen as foreigners, they were put in prisoner of war camps and not treated very well. So they went on to America and Canada. But in St. Anne's, where my paternal family came from, that appears to be where the Fairmans came from, and then my uncle. And it's funny because even my grandmother, she had a German name, Hilda. Oh, wow. He named her children with Olga, and I'm thinking, well, where does that come from? Yeah. So we have a lot. I haven't traced it yet, but I think we used to think that breast cancer only came from the maternal side. Yeah. But now we know that the prostate cancer gene actually is linked to it as well. And cancer of the ovary is very close to breast cancer. And the first gene they discovered in prostate cancer looked like ovarian cancer. So it could be that my grandfather was a carrier. Wow. And it came through him, because my grandmother had stomach cancer, which was probably because of she carried one of the bacteria that increase it. But she lived. She lived for 10 years, and wasn't told that she needed supplements after the operation, and that's what really took her life. So it's information, it's knowing, and we need to ask. And we certainly need to ask what type of breast cancer we've got, because it's certainly common in Nigerian communities. And because one of the doctors here went there, and what he found was that they were not testing for the type of breast cancers. The cheapest treatment is tamoxifen, the tablets.
Yeah, I've heard of that one.
Yeah. But tamoxifen, you might as well give somebody with triple negative breast cancer sweets, because it doesn't need hormones to grow. So, I'm raising awareness about all this. And Marlene and I met a couple of weeks ago, and I'll be going on to the event that she's doing on Wednesday, which I hope she'll talk about as well.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Amazing. I mean, we've had 2 fantastic presenters on the platform so far this evening. So Dr. Rose Thompson, thank you so much for that. So please hang around for a bit, because we've got a couple of questions coming up from guests on the platform. But thank you very much for your presentation. So Dr. Marlene Ellis, are you ready for us?
Follow that. Yes.
I'm sure you will. Well, I'm going to give you a lovely introduction. So Marlene changed direction in life after a breast cancer diagnosis in 2017. Marlene made a promise to the ancestors that she would pay back, was she to be successfully, to survive the treatment. With a clean bill of health, Marlene left the plantation to become a self-employed professional copywriter called a hat-trick copywriter. Well, the main reason why I got in touch with Marlene, so when I was doing my research into, this particular topic, because you can do the hot topic, but, talking about breast cancer and people being diagnosed with breast cancer, it's not an easy topic to engage with. So when I was researching to see, well, what information is there out there for our community? And I came across this wonderful woman, Marlene, and I spoke to her, and I just felt so inspired and so empowered, because she turned something that could have been so negative, so debilitating. And I think, perhaps even having such a diagnosis, you just want to probably curl up and die. You don't think about survival sometimes, but there's so many people, as Dr. Rose Thompson has said, that are survivors. They are warrior queens. That's what I see them as, warrior queens, and they're out there shouting from the rafters, and fighting for those who have been diagnosed and those who haven't been diagnosed yet, to get the best possible treatment out there, and to know there is a community, there is a network of organizations and individuals who can support and help you, and the good quality information is out there. So I'm really excited to be introducing Dr. Marlene Ellis, University lecturer.
Thank you. That's a fantastic introduction. Let's finish now while the going's good. Okay, I'll talk a little bit about what happened to me personally, and then I'm going to ask you to have access to the website, Joan, in 10 minutes, okay? Is that right, Joan? Have you gone, Joan? She has. Right.
Repeat that.
So, Joan, in about 10 minutes, I'm going to ask you if I to give me share access so I can put the website.
You can share.
Up, okay?
You've got that facility, my darling.
Great. So, yeah, first of all, thank you so much for those presentations, Dr. Aziza and Dr. Rose. Thank you very much. I will try to fill in the gaps, right? I'll try and do and I will try very hard not to, repeat what you've already learned from those 2 excellent presentations. So first of all, 2017, I was lying in bed and I didn't feel well. And I remember having like stomach pains, but they were pains, not serious pains, but I was just uncomfortable. And I kept lying in bed on one day and thinking, I'll get out of bed in a minute at the end of the day. And the whole week went by and I didn't recognize any of the feelings. It was just a discomfort, but I didn't recognize. Nothing to do with my breast, right? I just didn't feel right. And then I got out to go to the bathroom at the end of that week. I mean, I went before as well, but I noticed just by accident, I brushed the side of my left breast, and it it felt I don't know, it just felt different. And then I thought, oh, so then I touched and felt a lump, and I thought immediately, I've got breast cancer. So I went to get a mammogram immediately the following week. Um, then I absolutely was convinced I had breast cancer. I confided in a friend, that I think I've got breast cancer. A friend who already had breast cancer, a Black woman who already had breast cancer. There was no way I felt I would want to share that with somebody else. And then they came back very, very quickly. King's College, this was. Come and see us. And I thought, oh, thank God I don't have to wait any longer. Within about a week, I think a week at the most. And then I was there in front of them, and they said, we're pretty sure you've got breast cancer. They recognized it. And then that moment there and then, they say, we want to take a biopsy. They took the biopsy. I can't remember whether I then went away and came back for the results. I'm pretty sure I came back again a week or so for the results of the biopsy. They said I had stage 2 estrogen-related breast cancer. None of it, from that time that they said I had breast cancer, everything they said to me went out of the window. The only thing I had is, I've got cancer, I'm going to die. They talked to me, they explained things. I went on my own, which I really don't advise, because I went on my own because I didn't want to create the drama. I thought, if I've got somebody else there, it's more real. If I'm just on my own, I've still got it all under control, being that sort of strong Black woman thing. But when they speak, I couldn't hear anything. It was just noise. All I had is, I've got cancer. When am I going to die? And that's it. And I kept saying, oh, could you write that down? Could you write that down? And I'm supposed to be this educated woman, but emotionally, this was all. I said, I remember saying, how long do I have to live if I don't take the treatment? And he said, between 6 and 18 months. And I was thinking, okay. I immediately was thinking, I didn't have, like, I'm raised in care. I don't have that kind of stable, strong family thing. So I immediately thought, I think this is it. I've reached the end. People like me aren't supposed to survive. So I thinking, 18 months, that's not bad. Okay. I thought, I won't take the treatment because I don't have a strong family network to take care of me. But 18 months, I've got time to prepare my exit strategy. And all I was focused on was going out with dignity. And so, I think the thing that I really wanted is more information from Black women, because I just didn't know what to do. I really didn't know what to do. And I knew loads of Black women. I lived in Brixton, but I only knew one that has said, I've had breast cancer, look at my scars. And so I really, really didn't, I was desperate to know what other Black women do. This chemotherapy, you've got to take chemotherapy. You hear horror stories about it. I didn't know what do other Black women do. And it was the most important thing. So one friend of mine, Juliet, she sort of for the first month, I didn't tell anybody. So I wasted time because I didn't tell anybody. My address was mixed up. So once I did agree to take the treatment after that first month, my address wasn't right. So all the appointments went to the wrong address. So that delayed another month. So all of these things, I was a mess about what do I do. And I just wanted I wanted somebody to tell me, And so I'm saying this to you because I got a bit proud and thought, okay, I'll get ready. I'll plan my exit route. luckily I have some great quality people in my life that said, when I finally told a friend, she said, "You're not thinking straight. You're not thinking straight. You need to tell somebody else, and you need to discuss your options and understand that you should not be just thinking about your exit strategy." And once I could break that myself, of this strong Black woman who's always in control of herself, I let people into my life, people that were already in my life, but I'd never had to be this vulnerable before. So I didn't know, you know, but once I did let them into my life, to this day, it's very emotional for me because everybody was amazing. Everybody was like, "How can we help you? What do you need?" You know, and I say this to you because I don't want, I think there's sometimes this strong, independent thing really can get in our way. And if there's one thing I want to convey is that I hope this website, the idea of this website is that it's your Juliet. It's so that you're never alone, so that there's always a place to go to find out stuff. Because when I found out the stuff that you've now been told about the mortality rates, the death rates, and all of that, I was outraged because I had a history of Black activism. And I thought, what? My PhD was on education, you know, research, education. We've got to get our people more educated so we can take control of the world. Oh, we got to live first? Oh, I didn't know anything about this stuff. So I immediately, I really did say to the ancestors, look, once I realized I had lots of people that loved me, that wanted me to help me, I promised the ancestors that if I get through this, I will pay back. And you know, those promises in your life that you once you better, you just carry on with your life. But this was a promise I had to remember and keep. And so I'd like to talk the rest of my presentation through this website. So if I've got to go to share screen. I think this is. We go to the beginning. So I'd like to introduce you to blackbreastcancer.com. Really something that's simple on the tin, because when you're stressed and you just want help, you don't want to think of the name. You just Black breast cancer. And I hope that this is what, so I've spent a lot of time making this myself, teaching myself this, and it really reflects what I wanted to find.
Can you share the screen fully, Marlene? Is it
how do I do that? Can you not see it?
Can see, but we can see all the other bit. I don't know. If Rudy, are you there?
No, Marlon, just leave it as it is because you're doing it from a website. Yeah, that's correct. You are correct.
Right,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Oh, I see.
Okay.
No problem.
Sorry. So I put some of the very conscious, the questions, the controversial questions. Should we be participating in clinical trials? This is a very important issue because all the medication we take at the moment has been made up for. I have to stress, this is all about people from a Black perspective. By Black, I mean of African heritage. And nobody else, because I followed the data on people of African heritage. So the question about clinical trials is vital because what we take has been made up for white women because white women are the only people that attend clinical trials. So this is a real factor for us. Do we, you know, given the history of us being experimented on, do we get involved with clinical trials? And I won't go into it here for time, but when you click in here, you will see, you know, some things I say here, the history on this side. And if we get into clinical trials, this is a very brief thing that we've got to do. These are the conditions we have to set as a community if we're going to get involved in clinical trials. And I do think we should get involved in clinical trials, but it basically says we have to make sure we have to educate researchers that they have to take a community approach. They have to prove that they have community intentions. And there has to be a family involvement, not just the participant involvement, who's an advocate for the participant. And they have to keep the family involved in what's going on in the research, not just the traditional idea of we go along and we're experimented on. So I think there are a lot of things we can work on, but we've got to work on it as a Black community. And I say, I'm not a medical person like Rose and Dr. Aziza. So I'm speaking I'm using my research skills from a race perspective. And I'm looking at this as a consequence of what I've researched rather than my medical knowledge, which is zero. Okay, so I caution, I have zero medical knowledge, but I've done the research. And so we have to reject working with like the pink ribbon. For example, we do a lot of running and raising money for the pink ribbon, which is a corporation that sends that money back into designing drugs for cancer. And they don't have a budget for Black women, for Black people. So it's almost a vicious cycle. So I think that unless we can call that charity into account, which I think is almost impossible, there are discredited people, I think, organization, corporation, for a Black woman's perspective. But just to give you very roughly, this is what I wanted. These three things: videos, books, and movies for Black women. So if you look at nothing else on this website, you go to the resources, there are these videos. These are all Black women that have given testimonies. My name is such and such, 126, and I have breast cancer. So if you want to know what other Black women have done, it's all here, where you look from the UK, the US, Africa, there's the Caribbean, as Kenya, South Africa, Barbados. So that there's a whole range, children, but they're basically there because then you can say, well, what have other Black women done? That I resourced every single book I could find that's been written by a Black woman or man on breast cancer. So and look, so it's literally what it says on the tin, Black writer. It's an unapologetic website for Black women with breast cancer. And men, there's no books that I found that refer to Black men with breast cancer. But so there's a whole lot of books here to be read. And I mean, who knew Black people had written so much on breast cancer? And it's not just heavy research. Some women have written, I'm a mum, and this is how, so there's fictional, non-fiction, and there's research-based type reading. And there's books, there's movies and documentaries. I mean, I found some of the African films fabulous and really moving. Black film, Black movies, So there are others as well, but the primary focus is on what's at service to the Black community and breast cancer. So that makes it what this resource is about. But I've also, you've heard the talk about types, 4 basic types. DCIS, inflammatory. Inflammatory is important, I will say to you, because inflammatory doesn't have a lump. The ducts are blocked, but there is no lump. So when we come to think of mammograms, complete waste of time. So, and also think of the pain of the swollen breast and getting it squashed in a mammogram. So it's very important to know that Dr. Aziza talked about the peau d'orange. There's the skin that pops is a sign, is an indication of inflammatory breast cancer. Metastatic breast cancer. Dr. Rose is a living, live action, powerful story that she's talking to you in life about that breast cancer. And triple negative. So you've got 4 types. Then we've got these subtypes. This language might become more common in the future. Luminal A, luminal B, HER2, and basal-like triple cancer. Now, these things are getting more and more precise in language. So there's a film about HER2 that you can find right here in the movies, so that you don't have to do heavy study, especially if you're, if you're worried and you don't want to concentrate on information, but you might watch a film. And then there are stages. Now you're told, they immediately tell you, when you have your biopsy, the biopsy is the thing that finally confirms your breast cancer. Everything else you might have, but it's the biopsy is the last moment. And what's prescribed on that biopsy is crucial to you, because you want to know that determines the choices you will make about your treatment. So you get types and you get stages. So stage 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now stage 0 is a real thing, because stage 0 is effectively the DCIS, the ductal carcinoma in situ. And there's a film about that, because a lot of Black women have said, well, if there's nothing there and it might not spread, why do I want to do something about it? Why have a mastectomy, a double mastectomy, if it hasn't spread? It's a real dilemma. No, there's no cancer yet, but possibly it could have cut your breasts off. And a lot of people are having double mastectomies on this. I think that it became a bit of a trend when you had that famous actress, I've forgotten her name, a white famous actress. She had a double mastectomy, and then it became very popular. And sometimes it's really, really not necessary. It's about get yourself informed before you rush to do that. Okay, so it's about knowing this. Oh, sorry, just pressed the wrong button. It's about knowing your stages and types. You'll always have a type, and you'll always have a stage. Because if you might have DCIS, and then they might say, oh no, sorry, what they might say here, you see this, I don't know if you can see this, luminal A, estrogen breast cancer. Estrogen breast cancer is the most common type of breast cancer that amongst white people and Black people. But your stage may be any of these. Mine was stage 2. Most Black women are diagnosed at stage 3 and 4 by the time they make their first visit to the doctor. They're already stage 3 and 4. Why? Mammograms is one of the most unreliable types of, I've done this journey of the chemical route. Mammograms are one of the most unreliable forms of testing for Black women. They are incorrect 30% of the time. So often we get these, they call them false negatives, because generally Black women our breasts are more dense than white. It lacks that reliability. And so, but I do want to introduce you to the knowing that there are new mammograms that are 3D. And this is to try and help find the lump with more, that extra dimension. But I think Dr. Rose said that if you triple negative tends to be a much smaller growth. Let me go to triple negative. It's smaller, but it's more deadly. So it's small and it grows fast. So mammograms often don't pick up triple negative lumps. Black women disproportionately get triple negative breast cancer. If you have Black women disproportionately have the triple the BRCA gene. There's a higher percentage if you have a triple negative breast cancer. If you have the BRCA gene, there's a higher percentage you also have triple negative breast cancer. Now, the problem for us is that this occurs quite a lot in young Black women, 20, 30 years old. It's not unusual that you have 28-year-old women with breast cancer, Black women. And you'll see in the resources, there are testimonies of Black African-American women who've had breast cancer at 28 years old. We are one of the responsibilities we have for our future is to have this addressed, that there's an 11-year difference between when Black women get diagnosed with breast cancer and white women. So the kind of standard age of mammograms is not conducive for young Black women. The problem with that is that when young Black women go to the doctor and say, look, I think I've got a problem, they'll say, don't be ridiculous, of course, you're young, and they need support. They need to get informed in order to get that early diagnosis. They're not believed. And the other problem is that Black women procrastinate in getting help because we're scared that we might have it. So there's this double bind. And I'm conscious of time, so I'll just say one other thing that's important. There are some experts that are saying, because mammograms are so unreliable for us as Black women, that it's much more reliable to get your genetic tests done. The DNA, in the future, we will all know our DNA sequencing, because it gives you a more reliable sort of reply, especially if you think that it's hereditary. The problem is, in this country, it's quite expensive still. It's still expensive everywhere. It will cost on the market about £1,500. So then they're not keen for you to have that. But that's where you have to get assertive. Under certain circumstances, you're entitled to get that on the NHS. If you think that you have it, you have breast cancer, your mammogram says you haven't, your doctor says, there's nothing to worry about, we're not going to give you an MRI. MRIs, they're also very expensive. They don't like giving them. So then your option is to invest in the free market and to buy it privately, or get the NHS, if you fit into that category, and say, I'm entitled to this. And then just one other thing about the genetics. My goal, my desire, is to change the conditions of breast cancer by addressing the real source of breast cancer. I think there are perfectly healthy people, fit, have a great diet, slim, run every day, that have breast cancer. We know there are certain foods, processed meat is a number one for being carcinogenic. But generally speaking, there is no element we know that causes breast cancer. So what is it? I will say this. Dr. Rose said, there's evidence that of a pattern of Ashkenazi Jews having breast cancer. This is true. But because those tests have been tested against people that had experiences in the Holocaust, when this research has been compared with Ashkenazi Jews that have no relationship to the Holocaust, breast cancer. So I would like to propose this to you. The most important issue for breast cancer, for us as a Black people, is stress and trauma. It is our mindset that we have to work on more than anything. There is research that says if you believe in a forgiving God, if you have a peacefulness, a faith of any sort, I'm not religious, I'm not trying to preach anything. It's statistically a fact that people that believe in a loving God recover from cancer better than those that don't believe or believe in a punishing God. Cancer is a trauma to the body. And, you know, given our history as Black people, we have a lot of work to do about healing ourselves as whole beings. I think you can have the best diet in the world, but if you don't have that mindset sorted, then we are going to continue getting these cancers and leading it. That's the problem, that we have more breast cancers, more prostate cancers, people of African heritage than anybody else. And our recovery rate is not going down. We are projected for this to increase. Black people, not the overall pattern is that it will go down. But when we look at the data for people of African heritage, whether you're Caribbean, whether from or Africa, that's not the case. That's not our projection. So we have work to do. And I'll leave it there.
Dr. Marlin Ellis, thank you for that fascinating presentation. And because of the journey that you've been on, you were able to pull together this really informative website. So could you give us the name of it again? It's
blackbreastcancer.com, www.blackbreastcancer.com.
Fantastic. Well, we are pressed for time, so I'm going to quickly throw the floor open. Montrese, my darling, do we have any questions in the chat? If you're there with us.
Yes, I am here. Multitasking, I have to say. This was brilliant. Those women are amazing and fabulous. And I hope you know that every day you three, like, wow, so much information, so much. I don't even know where to start. Like, my mind is kind of, I want to take them home with me separately and have a conversation and dig in there to see some more. So yes, Joan, how do you want to handle it? There were some questions that were in the chat, and between Rose and the other lady, I don't want to get her name wrong, the other lady, they did a phenomenal job about answering the questions. But I wonder, in answering the questions, how many people, if we were really attentive to what we were supposed to be doing, we'd have been listening more than we would have been reading. So I wonder if I read the questions and I could read the answers, if that would be appropriate, and then maybe if the speakers want to elaborate, they could do that. What do you think?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, there wasn't very many. So the first question was when Dr. Cisse was talking. I hope I pronounced her name right. Did I get your name right? I did. She's smiling at me. Okay, good. So the first question was, apart from the high-risk groups, what is the significance behind the age range for being invited for a mammogram? And it was actually Rose that answered the question in her slide. And so tell me if I'm wrong, if I've got my thinking wrong, ladies. The higher the age you are, the more at risk you are to get it. So those age ranges from 50 up are invited because of their higher risk. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. And that's why I've always objected to the fact that there is an upper age range for screening, because if you think about it, a lot of those women in that age range, that they won't just have breast cancer, they might have dementia. You know, they may need people to actually, because what they say to people, when you reach 74, you're no longer invited. So if you have a problem, you have to get in contact with them. Well, in my community, they would say that some people who have dementia, they are so ill, they don't know their bedhead from their bedfoot. So they're not going to be examining themselves for breast cancer. My aunt had dementia. She was 74, and I had to go over to the US to actually set up her treatment because she had got cancer that had already metastasized to her glands. She was a person who never ate anything unhealthy. we had to sneak out and get coffee when we went to her house. And, you know, she looked on the packet of everything, and she never married and she never had children, but we were her children. And she was a premature sister, baby nurse. But when I saw her, when I got to America, and my plane was delayed and it was in the dark, I didn't recognize her. She got anorexia from dementia. She had not been eating. She'd been feeding on sultana cookies. And so I had to do everything for her to get her through treatment. And then she went to live in Caribbean, Jamaica, and it was dementia, I think, that took her. But it was really sad to see that. And I thought, if she had not had dementia, she probably would have gone to, because she had health insurance, but she would have got the right test, because women who have never had children, some younger women and some Black women and Chinese women, they have what they call dense breasts, you know, and the breasts are firmer and they have more breast cells. And when you lose hormones as you get older, you tend to lose firmness of the breast as well. And if you breastfed, I believe that my aunt had dense breasts, and they don't show up as well on mammograms. You need an ultrasound, and they only did a mammogram. So they didn't really capture everything straight away. And so she needed chemotherapy before she went to the Caribbean. So we really should be looking after our elders. We are taught to look after our elders. So to have them, we used to get some very advanced elders coming with breast cancers when I was training. And we didn't know as much about dementia then. And it's definitely something we need to consider.
Cool, thank you for your response. Let's move on, shall we? So another question was, what is your take on nutrition rather than chemo or one of the other treatments? And Dr. Cisse said healthy nutrition can certainly help to reduce risk, but she didn't know that there was any evidence that it would help in curing cancer. There's a lot of research available on the current targeted treatments.
Yeah, so it was just basically, I mean, this can sometimes be controversial where individuals believe that if they change their diet and they became very, very healthy and vegan or so on, it can cure cancer. And there isn't any evidence to say that it will cure cancer. It could certainly help in protecting you, I guess, from aggravating things. So when Dr. Marlene mentioned that processed food, there's certain food types or certain things that have what we call carcinogens that can cause cancer or aggravate cancer. So avoiding those could help, but curing it, no. I mean, the evidence is chemotherapy. What we're doing when we're trying to treat cancer is we're trying to kill off these abnormal cells, get rid of them. So either by surgery, removing them completely, and then the chemotherapy again helps to kill them off, or radiotherapy. And then the targeted therapy, how they help is they block off the hormone receptors. So again, Dr. Marlene had mentioned that we have different types, and also Dr. Rose mentioned that there are different types of breast cancer, depending on the receptors that they have on the outside. So again, the targeted treatment helped to block off those receptors so that the cancer again can't use the hormones to divide quicker. So in simple terms, yes, it's not necessarily going to help to cure the cancer with regards to what evidence we have. So if they tell you to take the treatment, really, I'd encourage you to go for it. But Dr. Marlene and Dr. Rose are both, they're both thriving with breast cancer, so they could probably talk on it even more.
Yes, Dr. Rose, if you unmute yourself, I can see you've got your hand up. Did you want to make a comment?
Just about the age thing, because I think that as Black people, young Black women are suffering the most aggressive. Triple negative is happening for young Black women more than anybody else. So we have to be representing them, because that group is very vulnerable for Black women. They are getting it very early. And it's not so rare anymore for them to have triple negative breast cancer. So I think we've got to watch it because our future generation is just round the corner, you know.
Thank you for that.
Thanks, Marlene. And that is absolutely true. And we need more effective treatments for it as well. But I also wanted to come in on the back of Dr. Aziza. Just before the pandemic happened, we lost a young woman at the age of 43 who had been for the biopsy and then turned down treatment and was trying to eat to cure it and be physically active and everything. And I had to have a reconstruction just before I was asked to get involved because the vice chair and the treasurer was seeing her, and it was her family that came to us, her family and friends, because I don't think I've ever seen such an advanced stage of cancer since I was a student. And she was being advised by people who were well-meaning, but they didn't know cancer. Cancer is not one type of condition, it's over 220. And even within breast cancer, it's the hormones that basically tend to fuel it. So in actual fact, it's timely because we did a conference in 2012 on food, nutrition and cancer. And we have just done, about 2 weeks ago, that's why I first met Marlene, our second conference on it, funded by BLM UK. And so we covered all that. So what we'll do, we're editing the YouTube video at the moment, and then we'll put it up so that people can see it. We had Dr. Terry Holiday, who's from Philadelphia originally. She has a PhD in nutrition. We had, and she herself had a benign tumor that disappeared after she ate healthily. So I'm never going to say it doesn't help to eat healthily, but when it comes to cancer, most people do not know what they're dealing with. We've had 3 women, we have an African breast care nurse we never even had a Black nurse in our breast care unit in 30 years. So our group has changed that. And Shireen said to me that, you know, having a problem in that we're getting younger Black women turning down treatment again because they are following the advice on the internet. We have the evidence to say now, and I am a true believer in, you know, what I call integrated treatment, because when I was working at Cancer Backup, which was the leading European information charity, I was reviewing some of the research, and there was some research done on breast cancer, hormonal breast cancer, where they were looking at adding in something natural with the drug to see if they could decrease the dose in the drug because it had a similar effect. And they added in evening primrose oil in one study and found that they could reduce the level of the drug, which is a good thing because then it reduces the side effects. I think we need more qualified medical herbalists working in the NHS so that when people have questions about what they can take, that they get the accurate information, because those people have come from a plant-based botanics background. They learn about the drugs, but they also learn how they interact with the treatment. And I think there is some room in actually looking at some of what's going on in other countries as well. When people don't want treatments, they are developing prescriptions that are natural for them as well. My great-grandmother was basically the midwife in Clarendon, and my uncle tells me, my uncle who, you know, he trusts the doctors and he doesn't do anything outside that, but he says it was clearly obvious when she and her partner were doing midwifery, using herbs, using hygiene, that the death rate was low because they were using traditional things. And even things like, my godmother said that if a baby had a rash, they would take the nappy and just wipe their face when they had urine on. And I thought, that's ridiculous. But actually, I have eczema when I'm stressed. And I was looking at the ingredients of one of the tubes that I picked up, and it said urea. It's urine. Urea is good for the skin. So some of the things like cod liver oil helps to maintain weight. Our women knew that. There's Ayurvedic techniques, which is coming from Egypt. There are other things that we need to look at, because it can help to reduce the doses of processed drugs that actually can increase side effects, and people are living with those side effects for a long time. So I'm very interested in medical herbalists, and I've met some in private hospitals. And one of our members, her nephew has just done the course. It's the 3.5-year course, and I encourage people to do it, because I think we need both sides of the story, because all you're told if you ask something is, well, we don't know how that works, when it may be beneficial.
Thank you very much for all of your answers. More just nuggets are coming out as all of these questions are coming. That's really, really cool. Somebody asked about if there were any apps for breast checking, and Dr. Cisse put in the chat Copperfield and Know Your Lemons. I'll just add in the chat those two apps, their names, so that they're at the forefront so people can see that those links are there if somebody wants to go to those. The next question was about vitamin D. Can I check that taking vitamin D supplements are not good, or have I misunderstood, please? And it was Dr. Thompson that gave this answer. She said vitamin D levels globally have never been so low, even in some hot countries. Sun-safe campaigns and advice to use sun-blocking products have been so effective to reduce skin cancers. Skin cancer is rare in the Black population. No consideration has been given to the significantly lower levels in Black and Brown communities, especially in some faith communities if the skin is covered up too. Endocrinologists now advise vitamin D3 supplements for all, but more research is needed to personalize the higher dosages needed for people with more melanin, and to take contradictions like thyroid gland conditions into account.
Yeah, I think vitamin D is really important. And the man Sir Richard Dole, who was the man who discovered that nicotine in tobacco was the increase the risk of lung cancer, he also wrote a book with a guy who we invited to our first Food, Nutrition and Cancer conference. So every time I went to a conference in London, he used to raise awareness about taking vitamin D levels into account. And he came and he did a presentation, and he bought the report and showed it me, because I knew him anyway, that Sir Richard Dole did with him. And from that time, they had basically proven that we needed to look at vitamin D deficiency and cancer, particularly with some cancers like prostate cancer. There's a lot more work to be done, and it took another year for one of our major cancer charities to admit not only that stress is something that increases the way we treat each other. I know that when I was diagnosed, that a year before that, just keeping the charity going and raising funding for it, and trying to pick up all the community events, particularly when health professionals let people down. I don't like to let people down. I should have been out with a support group tonight, but I did not want to let Joan down. I was not looking after myself, and it was very stressful. When you're stressed, you don't eat properly, you don't exercise properly, you don't sleep properly, and all these things increase the risk indirectly. So I think the vitamin D thing, we are pushing hard and strong to actually make sure that general charities who don't necessarily just cover BME or attract BME actually take into account vitamin D is really important. It's a hormone. It's actually does a whole load of stuff that we don't even understand fully. But we do think there have been small studies that have linked it to MS, multiple sclerosis. I've seen it increasing in the Black community and in more than one family member. And we know that in Scotland, we have the lowest rates of vitamin D, levels of vitamin D in this whole country. The further north you get above the equator, the more vitamin D deficiency you have because of the lack of sunshine. And we were not meant to be here, really. We were supposed to be sunning ourselves in the Caribbean, get lots of sunshine. So being here, our levels are even lower. But my aunt did have thyroid cancer as well as breast cancer. And I went to see the endocrinologist in Florida. And he was showing me how he was withdrawing the fluid because he was using non-cutting needles. And I said, we're seeing really low vitamin D levels in the UK. And he said, it's everywhere. People here have got low vitamin D levels as well. We don't know the true impact of it, but we do think some of those conditions that people are developing are down to vitamin D deficiency. So please, particularly if you're Black, first you need to find out from your GP if there's reason you can't take it, because some people have damage to the parathyroid glands at the back of the thyroid. And if you give them high dose vitamin D, they produce too much calcium. I've seen it with one of our men's mothers. And when you produce too much calcium, it's a bit like when you have bone metastases, it seeps into the blood. And if you have too much calcium, you feel nauseous and you vomit. And if it gets to the brain, you feel confused. So high dose vitamin D can do that. So we have to get the levels right for us, because we need higher levels. And who's doing the research on that?
Thank you. I'm going to quickly jump in here. Dr. Aziza Sese is going to have to run off and leave us, but thank you so much for being on the platform. Do you have a parting message for guests on the platform?
Just thank you so much for everyone who is here on a Saturday evening for prioritizing your health and for being here, listening to these wonderful women speak. Please, please, please. I think it was only about 20% of people who were doing their self-breast examination. Please, please, please try and get them done more regularly. I know it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll pick up all types of cancer, but just know you're normal so you can pick it up at an earlier stage. Because as we say, early detection saves lives.
Absolutely. Are you able to take one question, or you definitely running off now?
There's one more question. It's just my 7-month-old, the babysitter has to leave. So.
I know. Right. I'm going to open up the platform. Is there anybody who quickly, so put your hand up quickly, who wants to ask Dr. Aziza Sese a question? Now is an opportunity. We've got a panel of experts here. So if there isn't anybody, I'm going to give you a couple, maybe 30 seconds, because we're about to finish anyway, because we are way over time. Anybody want to ask anything?
Someone was talking about vitamin D in the chat, and they were saying that they're deficient, but the GP wasn't prescribing. So I was just responding to say that it really depends on the level. So there are 3 different levels that we talk about. If your vitamin D is normal, that's fine. Sometimes they say just take 10 micrograms a day to make sure that it stays normal, depending on the level. If your level is insufficient, so that's in between normal and deficient, where it's very low, then your GP will usually advise you to get over-the-counter 25 micrograms tablets that you can get over-the-counter. If you're deficient, that's when we do prescribe on the NHS the treatment dose. And it's usually, it varies because there's so many different options. So it could even be that you take one really strong dose once a week over 7 weeks or so on. So if you are deficient, if you're definitely deficient, then the GP should be prescribing you the strong dose for 7 weeks. And then you take maintenance dose of 25 micrograms thereafter.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So Dr. Sese, have a wonderful time. I know you've got a young family.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, let's stay in touch.
Absolutely, please.
Yes,
I've learned so much from both of you. Thank you.
And that's what it's all about, you know, us connecting, us networking, because, you know, together we are stronger.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you very much. Let's see. I know a lot of the questions have been answered in the chat. So is there anything that hasn't been answered? You can see, Montrese. Everything's been answered, hasn't it?
Yeah. No, there was one that wasn't answered.
Oh, it wasn't answered. Which one was that?
Yeah. And that one was, can you have a 3D mammogram as part of the national screening program?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, Am I muted? Yeah, as I believe, as I understand it, our machines now are 3D, but it's worth being conscious of it, because you might want to ask when you have your mammogram, you might want to know whether it's a 3D or not. But they are, yeah. So I think in the West, most of our machines are 3D now.
Do you want to comment on that, Dr. Thompson?
Can you just repeat the question? I was just typing because I've just putting in the blood tests that you can get to check the DNA of 50 types of cancer. It's called the Gallup blood test. Yeah.
The question was, can you have a 3D mammogram as part of the national screening program? And Dr. Ellis said yes.
Well, I thought they were all 3D now, mostly, because we used to take just two views, one above, one kind of vertically, and then one kind of two, and then realized that the breast glands go right up into your armpit. So they started taking them at an angle as well. And we do have better technology, because when I was a student, I sound so old, don't I? You had to develop the film. You had to run into the dark room and develop the film like you were a photographer with the stinky chemicals and whatever. Now all the images are digital, so it's much faster. And I actually, when I got my honorary doctorate at Nottingham University, I was sitting on the same table as another doctor who got his, because he's developed a 3D MRI that can actually tell what kind of tissue it's going through. So if it was going through cancerous cells, it would give a different signal. So I don't know how far he's got on that now, but we're on the cusp of really different things happening. I can tell you that the National Breast Cancer Advisory Committee was disbanded last year. And I think that's because we're going to be having the Gallery test coming in, because it picks up like traces of DNA from 50 types of cancer, and it can more accurately diagnose things, even rare cancers. So I think they're changing the whole screening thing, because it's not cost effective, like Marlene said. It's not perfect for young women. It is limited to age groups and whatever. This will be a much cheaper way of doing things. And then all they have to do is, if somebody tests that they have cancer, you still have to do those tests, but you won't have to do as many. You won't have to put everybody through that. You won't have to put everybody through a biopsy, because it will show whether they've got cancer or not. So it's early days. I always have misgivings with these things, because people do get left out. But if you want to get that test done, you can opt in if you are healthy and do not have cancer. And I'm just trying to find out the criteria that people need to meet to get into it, because we are going to Sarah, who is the doctor in charge of it, to say we need as many people from the Black community taking part, as well as, white British people will be informed. I mean, how many of you knew about the 100,000 Genomes Project? I only found out because I was on a steering group with one of the clinical genetics professors that I know, and he needed to let me know that they were collecting 100,000 samples of cancer and rare disease, different types. And it was David Cameron that actually announced it, because remember, he had a son that died of a rare disease, and he announced it before he left office. And it had been going for 2 years before I found out about it. So we got a bit of funding from Genomics England. Vivian Parry, who used to do Tomorrow's World, was actually the community engagement person. So she came up to see us, and we went to, I think it was 6 different cities, and raised awareness. And because people had family history, and because they'd lost people to cancer, they were more willing to join in and give samples. My sister and I gave samples. as well, just blood tests, or some people agreed to give tumor samples. Anyone who had ovarian cancer was automatically introduced to it. And I lost 2 friends who related to my younger sister to ovarian cancer, but at least they lived much longer than they normally would, because there is treatment for it now. And each year it seems to be getting better. So yeah, I just think we just need to stay abreast. And like Marlene said, there are some side effects that we really need to take note of, because our vice chair, the second treatment she had for kidney cancer was related to thalidomide, because thalidomide was the drug that they gave to people, pregnant women. Even my twin sister had it. It was to stop sickness, and they didn't realize it had this property where it cuts off the blood supply to some cells, and it cut off the blood supply to the what we call the extremities, the fingers and toes, so they didn't develop properly. Well, somebody studied it later on, all things can work together for good, and thought, hang on a minute, kidney cancer likes a rich blood supply. Let's give it a much lower dose of thalidomide, because it's called an angiogenetic drug, and see what it does. And it has made a huge difference to kidney cancer patients. The first one she was fine on. The second one had a side effect that it depleted melanin. And our vice chair, Paula Edwards, who was made national news because she was your colouring Joan, and she looked like she was mixed heritage, black white. In fact, while she was on it, her legs and arms were turning white. And our researchers didn't have any research on it really, so they had to get in touch with America. But like Marlene said, if that sort of thing is happening, we need to know right at the beginning, because her young daughter said, "You don't look like my mummy anymore." And it was emotionally difficult for her. So that was my tablet reminder. But yeah, I think there's a lot more to learn. I'm encouraging younger people, because I'm old and I've been saying I want to retire for 3 years now, to get into medicine and get into research and continue the legacy that we started.
Wonderful, thank you. Montrese, we can take one more before we wrap up.
Oh, that's okay. So I'll go to the first one that I saw. Someone wants to know, how can they well, not particularly then, how can one become part of the blood test trials?
I'm just trying to find out about it, because what we're going to do is try and do something that is specific with the Black community. But what I will do, I will go to Sarah and say, if you want us to do this, you need to fund it, because this is our problem. We're voluntary most of the time. And I've done that for 12 years now. And even when I've been on speaking platforms, sometimes they have not told me that there is a fee for it. And my family now need a roof over their head and the house repairing. So they're on my back to actually earn. But we have done it before, where we've gone straight to Genomics England or NHS England to say, okay, you want to up the recruitment, or you want to share some information, but we are no longer slaves, basically. You know, if you have a budget, what's your budget? So we have a number of organizations. I wrote 2 reports about Black men and prostate cancer, which most people don't know, because those that should have been sharing it didn't. I think they saw us as competition, but it changed the face of prostate cancer, and we've saved the lives of many men through that. But one of the young women who was carer, she wanted to start a charity in Manchester. In fact, she wanted to start an extension of our charity, but I said, I'll support you to start the charity that suits Manchester and be a trustee. And she's done really well. Marcella Turner runs Cancer Survive UK. So both of us joined together to go to the, I think it was 5 cities in the end, because Newcastle has really suffered. It lost a lot of the Black organisations. And we have a report on that. We're putting all the reports on the website, bmecancer.com. And when the Food, Nutrition and Cancer Conference is done, I covered bowel cancer because bowel cancer is another one that is taking African Americans, and it is affecting Black population here as well. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So, did I answer the question? I probably didn't, did I?
You did. No, you did. Just lovely. Is your charity called BME Cancer?
What it was called BME Cancer Communities, and everybody knew us as that. We were a community interest company to begin with, but because it was so challenging to raise funding, we decided to become a charity about 3 years ago. So I never liked the term BME, didn't give it to myself, didn't know what it meant to begin with. I always called it Be Me, put yourself in my place. So it's B''ME, which is Be Me Against Cancer. And the website is bmecancer.com.
So if someone goes to your website, they can find a link for more
Yes,
information
yeah.
about your charity. Okay.
Yeah.
So all of the contact information for all of the speakers are in the chat. If people want to go to the chat and have a look there, you can learn more about our beautiful speakers, as well as I want to remind you to save the chat while you have opportunity to do that. If you're on your computer, if you're on a cell phone, you won't be able to save the chat.
Okay.
And I'm done.
Thank you, Montrese, our wonderful chat moderator. What would I do without you?
Yes, thank you, Montrese. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So with that being said, nobody wanted to ask any questions, which is absolutely fine. Most people put their questions into the chat, but you know, I just want to say a wonderful, you've all been.
Yeah, Joan, before you do that, can I, before you close off, can I just say there is a webinar coming up next week?
Well, hold on. I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna get
okay.
you know, a couple sentences in your, as you know, as we say goodbye. So, Dr. Rose Thompson, Dr. Marlene Ellis, what is your parting message to guests on the platform? So, do you want to go ahead now, Marlene?
Yeah, my parting message is that the goal for Black breast cancer is to focus on our mindsets. And it's the part, I think, it's the glue between, you know, the medical staff and but it's a real focus. So please think about peacefulness keeps our genes, our cells healthy. Peacefulness is so important, and especially in this time of war, pandemic, it creates cancer. Literally, it creates cancer. So, you know, look out for Black breast cancer. It's going to grow as a community. There will be programs that will be designed specially for you that focuses on the gap between having cancer and not having that medical knowledge. So stay well, and please, in these traumatic times, please stay as peaceful as you can. Oh, there's a webinar. I forgot. There's a webinar next Wednesday on the 9th of March. That will be 4 amazing speakers. One of them you'll never know. Her name is Dr. Rose Thompson, but there are also 3 other ones, and you'll hear about breast cancer from different perspectives. But everybody's had an impact. So please, if you're free, if you can take another conversation on breast cancer, it's next Wednesday, the 9th of March, between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. Black Breast Cancer Voices, and it's an Eventbrite thing. It's online.
Have you put it into the chat? The information.
I haven't put the link in.
If you can put the link into the chat, that'll be excellent for those who can.
Okay, I'll try. Otherwise, I will send it to you, Joan, and then perhaps you can send it out to your people.
Yeah,
because I'm not sure how I do it from here.
Okay.
And do sign up for the newsletter for Black breast cancer. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for being on the platform. You've been absolutely amazing. Thank you. Dr. Rose Thompson, what is your parting message to guests on the platform?
Where's my fan? Because I'm having a hot flush. Basically, yeah, I just want to say, you know your body more than anybody else. And during the pandemic, we all know it's been harder to get in touch with health professionals if you think something's wrong, and GP practices have been closed, and we've had to make calls for people and go with people and meet them somewhere outside of the clinic because you can't go on. But I just want you to know that follow the instructions that you've been given here. But if you are having problems, it's worth ringing people like us or somebody you know who is a health professional who can help you. Our latest project has just been on advocacy, patient advocacy, because we've been going with patients, we've been supporting them. But you know your body more than anything else. And if you feel that you are not getting the service that you should get, particularly if you're in a practice where there's more than one doctor, you can change that doctor. And you can do the same if you are having treatment and you are not getting the treatment that you should be getting. So you know your body, you know what we've just said about signs and symptoms. And I would add that persistent pain in one breast is rare, but it's what I had, and it can be a symptom. So if you have persistent pain, you can't feel anything. My sister had DCIS, so it was the little calcium dots in the breast, but she knew something was wrong. So do report. And I want you as well to start speaking to your families. Some people have a family history and they don't know because nobody's ever spoken about it. So need to start asking who in the family had breast cancer or had some type of cancer that might be related. Ovarian cancer is very strongly related to breast cancer. So when you have a family history, you might have one or two people who have breast cancer and then one has ovarian cancer. And they are actually trying to pick that up very quickly because it can get quite big within the abdomen before they can treat it. So it's really important that we know our bodies, and if we're not getting the help that we can get, take somebody with you who is somebody like me, or take some evidence with you, and just make sure that you get something done about it, because the earlier it's detected, the better. But just remember that even if it's detected at stage 3 like I was, I literally had treatments in October, because now that I'm monitored every 3 months, they picked up this, because it's very common for cancer to go to the back. So if you've had a history of cancer, don't let any doctor tell you that it's wear and tear. You need to get an x-ray. So it's really important that you know your body, you get somebody to support you if you don't feel listened to, and that you change and ask for somebody else if they're really not respecting you.
Wow, I've been completely blown away this evening. What a fantastic session. I mean, all the sessions that we do are good, but this has been so thought-provoking, and it just focuses on our needs in the community. And I can see loads of people that, you know, the clapping symbols on my screen. It's been absolutely fantastic. And you know, a real big thank you from the bottom of my heart, because one of my cousins heard her story with breast cancer. It was so awful. I mean, she woke up and there was all this sort of like black, there was gunk coming out of her breast and she couldn't understand it. And her journey, even now, and I think it's about 6-7 years on, it's been really difficult. It's really difficult. So, you know, I just see you all as warriors, really strong women, and you know, you've got a message, you've got stories to share. You just keep the whole thing so real. And I think one of the key messages that, you know, you don't have to be alone. There are individuals, there are professionals out there from our community that can help and want to help, you know, that want to help. And, you know, when I see yourself, Marlon, you know, because you were, you know, thrust into this pathway, you know, you didn't want to go down it, but, you know, this is the you know, the hand that life dealt you. And, you know, off your own back, you created, because you saw there was the need. So you created this website focused on us. And sometimes you just need to get the messages from people who look like us. Resonate. So, you know, I commend you for what you did. And that's why I said, when I did my research and I came across it, thought, you know, we need to get this woman out there to everybody. They all need to just know about you. And people need to know that this resource with all this information is there for us to tap into. So, you know, I commend all of you. Dr. Rose Thompson, you have been a warrior trailblazer for years.
Tell me about it. Don't you think it's time that I could lie down now and hand over to the next lot?
We need
I've just posted something else. I'm a member of the Jamaican Diaspora UK Health and Wellbeing team. So there is a breast cancer webinar on the Jamaican Diaspora UK website that I did with Charmin Case, who is a brilliant breast care nurse at St. George.
But if you're doing anything, I mean, I've got a couple of broadcast groups. Send me the information and I can share it out. That's not a problem. Yeah. And I can also get Rudy James, who does the Eventbrite side of things. We can send out something for people who've been on this platform. We can send out that information, I think, hopefully through that channel. So, you know, we're happy to support. You know, probably we can have a chat after and see, you know, what else can we do just to raise the awareness about all the wonderful work that you're doing in our community. So I'm not going to keep anybody much longer. I just want to thank everybody for being on the platform. We should unmute everybody and just give you all a round of applause. Absolutely fantastic. And just thank you for, you know, giving up your time on a Saturday evening, you know, to be with us and to share the message. Absolutely. Really, really powerful. So I'm going to make, as I wind down, I just want to thank everybody for being on the platform. As I said in my earlier introduction, you know, I don't Zoom as often as I used to. I used to be on a Saturday morning, 8 o'clock sharp, dressed to the hills with my shades on. I'm actually out walking with my group now. And it's really interesting because, you know, no matter what sort of like topic I discuss, the key thing is always about diet, lifestyle, sleep, stress. They come up in whatever topic I seem to talk about, and it's really simple things, you know, cut the stress out of your life. So it's really simple things we need to sort of like factor into our lives in order to have some sort of longevity in our lives. So, you know, drink the water, get the sleep, eat well, cut out the junk, the junk food. For some, it's quite, you know, it's quite simple. Get the exercise, half an hour walking every day, basic exercise, you know, to get out there and do your thing. You're on mute, Dr. Rose. I know you're trying to say something. Can we ask to unmute you?
I just wanted to point out something that is really important. There's a lot out there on the internet. There's a lot out there saying that there are things that are cancer cures, and some of them may well prove to be, but they have to be trialed first and researched. And I know, for example, that a lot of the men in the Caribbean who can't afford cancer treatment for prostate cancer, they are controlling their pain with weed, basically, cannabis. There is some evidence that it's a pain reliever and it calms you down, but there isn't real evidence yet, say, about it being a cancer cure. And what people are doing, they're going on, even with soursop, it needs to be researched. People are listening to this, and then they will eat that one thing. They don't have a balanced diet anymore. You know, they will overload on one nutrient. So when the Food, Nutrition and Cancer event is edited, I'll send it to you, Joan, so that you can,
and see if we can get it onto the YouTube channel as well.
It was a really good event, and as I said, we now need to focus on bowel cancer because we're losing people very quickly to it. Okay,
well, anything we can do to support, you know, we are there 100%.
Well, I hope we can get back to meeting face to face and invite you all up to Nottingham to one of our events.
Fantastic. Yeah, we'll be there. Excellent, definitely. Because you know, we have to spread this message. So, you know, and that's the beauty of Zoom, being able to do this event, and you're up in Nottingham, we're down in London. So, you know, we just have to keep pulling together and keep networking and keep collaborating, because there is power in collaboration. So,
and thank you, Joan, for inviting me and putting this together. You've had 37 people, and some of them have included some of the women that I know. Audrey Ann says brilliant. So thank you. Keep up the good work.
We'll keep pushing ahead. We'll keep pushing ahead. But thank you all. So before I quickly head off, as I said before, you know, we've got a couple of cultural markets coming up. So we've got the Easter Cultural Market coming up on Sunday, the 10th of April in venue 28 Beckenham Road. And then we've got a Good Friday Cultural Market, which is on the 15th of April. It's going to be in the Mansion in Beckenham Place Park, Beckenham BR31SY. Tickets are bookable via Eventbrite, and it's a free event to attend, showcasing all our wonderful Black businesses. What else are we doing? We've got our 2-year anniversary dinner and dance, celebrating our Queen's Walking Group. So tickets are available. All the information is in the chat, so please save the information in the chat. We've got a payment plan in place. Come and meet us. You know, I'm hoping that we'll have some presenters that have been on our Zoom platform as well at the dinner and dance. So come and meet us. Come and meet the Queen of Queens. It'll be an amazing event. So on that note, so our next Zoom, I think it's going to be the one we're going to be talking to industry experts from the fashion world. So I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be quite interesting to be what it's like as a Black model back in the day working in the industry. And yes, I'm really quite looking forward to that. So I want to wish you all a wonderful Saturday evening. And if you're going to be partying or you're going to be partying in your bed, but enjoy. And thank you for being with us. It's been a really, really good event. And I hope you've taken away some gems. So please do save the chat and please follow us on Eventbrite, because as we launch the tickets, you'll get the instant notification through on email. Follow us also, Queens and Rudy J Media. Again, you'll get the instant notifications. This has been zoomed straight through to Facebook, so it's going to be there now for posterity. So you can watch it again and again. You can share it with your friends. It's also on YouTube now. Our YouTube channel is Queens 2020 Lockdown Series. And again, you can share this, and hopefully we'll get the recording that Dr. Rose spoke about, Dr. Rose Thompson spoke about, and we'll try and get that up onto our YouTube channel as well. Because the more places we can share things, you know, and expand the network, you know, the better it's going to be for us as a community. So I want to wish you all a wonderful evening, and thank you for being on the platform with us. Until next time, take care and have a good evening. God bless you all. Bye-bye.